My name is Vincent van Gogh, and the world has never quite understood me. Perhaps because I saw more in it than others wanted me to. I saw light where there was only darkness, and color, even in places where others saw nothing. This video is dedicated to everyone who left too soon themselves, and for all who are now groping in the same darkness. Because even though the world around us seems to have gone out, that little light inside you is still burning. You are not alone. I was born in a small village called Zundert in the Netherlands, in a house where they didn't talk much. My father was a preacher, a man of faith. My mother was a quiet, serious woman. She had eyes that never quite smiled. When I was born, my name was Vincent, the same name as my brother who died a year before me. I always felt I was a kind of stand-in, a shadow of the child who came before. No one ever said it out loud, but I felt it. Like my first breath belonged to someone else. I learned to keep my mouth shut even then, because silence was easier than words in our house. When I was alone, I drew. I spent hours looking at the trees, the light, the people in the fields. And somewhere between rain and sunset, I understood for the first time that colors could say more than any voice. Everything I couldn't say out loud, I hid it in paper, in lines, in light. Maybe that's why I've felt so much all my life, because I never learned not to feel. The older I got, the more I tried to become who others wanted me to be, the son of a preacher, a quiet, humble, sensible man. But something was growing inside me that could not be stilled, a sense that there was more to the world, depth, pain, beauty, and that I must somehow capture it. Only it wasn't talked about. Men don't talk about feeling empty or afraid, so I kept my mouth shut, silent, until the silence started to echo back. I tried to work, to serve, to trust. I helped people, preached about hope, but inside me, the words rang hollow, like an echo coming back from an empty temple. I just wanted to understand why there is so much pain in us, and why it's not allowed to be talked about. Maybe that's when I understood that art is not about perfection, but about trying to survive our own silence. Every painting I've ever done was actually a letter I never sent to anyone. A letter about what it's like to be a man, and yet struggle every day with the feeling that you're slowly falling apart. When I first arrived in Paris, the light blinded me. The streets were full of color, people, life, and I felt like I had finally found a world that felt the same way I did. I used to meet artists who talked about colors as music, about light as faith. I began to paint differently. Yellow was no longer just the color of the sun, it was hope. Blue wasn't just the sky, it was silent pain. I painted as if it could quiet the noise in my head. Every brushstroke was a plea for peace, each painting an attempt to stop the chaos that was growing inside. I built my yellow house in Arles. I believed I would find a home there, a place where the colors would breathe with me. I wanted friends around me who would understand that art was not a job, but a way to stay alive. When Gauguin arrived, I believed I had found a friend. But the world I had in my head was too fragile. 2 painters, 2 souls, and a silence that grew between them. Every word he said cut me deeper than I realized. And when he left, something inside me broke. I lost more than a friendship that night. I lost a part of myself. And so I cut off my ear, not out of madness, but from the feeling that if I gave a piece of me away, maybe the pain would stop. It didn't. It just turned colors. From that moment on, I painted, as if my survival depended on each painting. The sun shone over Arles, but inside me was a storm no one could see. And yet I still believed that there was a place somewhere between the light and the dark, where one could be oneself, and not be ashamed of it. After he left, I was left alone, in a house that was supposed to be a refuge and became a cage. Gauguin left, and with him the last thread that held me together. All that was left was paint, canvas, and silence. Soon I was taken to Saint-Remy. It was a sanatorium, a convent converted into an asylum for souls that the world considered broken. High stone walls, narrow windows, corridors smelling of lavender and medicine. Outside, birds sang, but inside, all you could hear were footsteps and the occasional cries of those who had forgotten who they were. And among them, me. I tried to convince the world that I was just tired, not lost. But inside, it was like being locked inside myself. In the morning, I heard the screams of other patients. At night, I talked to the stars. Maybe that's why Starry Night was created. A painting that wasn't about the sky, but about the hope that somewhere beyond it all, there was still something shining. Every brushstroke was like a breath, each painting an attempt to return from the abyss. As I painted, the pain subsided for a while, but as soon as I put the brush down, the silence returned. Sometimes I thought of Gauguin, not with anger, more like silence. Maybe he was just frightened by the depth I was falling into, and maybe I couldn't stop it either. In my letters to my brother, I wrote that I was feeling calmer, that I was getting better. But the truth was different. I was painting faster than I ever had before, as if I felt I was running out of time. And yet, I believed that paint would save me, that if I put enough light into them, maybe one day that light would come back to me. I wasn't looking for riches or fame in my life. I was only looking for a man who would look at me and say, "I understand you." But instead, all I heard was silence most of the time. I fell in love many times, with women I wanted to protect, the ones the world condemned, and those who feared me. I longed for tenderness, for home, for warmth to quiet the noise in my head. But every time I opened up, the world turned away. When I loved a woman that society considered sinful, they pointed the finger at me. When I wanted to be a husband and father, they said I was crazy, and so I was left alone. And when a man is alone, he starts looking for silence where he shouldn't be looking. Absinthe, a green mist that turned my pain off for a while and lit up the world in colors that didn't exist. For a moment, I thought I understood everything, but the morning was worse. Every drop that was supposed to help me forget instead blurred the line between dream and madness. I sought salvation in color, in glass, oblivion, and neither saved me. Maybe that's why I painted so fiercely, to drown out everything that burned inside me. And though I often lost myself, I kept hoping that somewhere between the brush and the light there was a piece of me left, pure, calm, real. When I left Saint-Remy, I thought I would recover. Auvers was a quiet little town surrounded by fields. Green hills, blue skies, the smell of summer. Everything was peaceful. I lived in a small room above the inn and went to the doctor, Dr. Gachet, who had a weakness for art and souls like me. I could feel the understanding in his eyes, but even he knew he could only watch me, not save me. I painted every day, the fields, the church, the cypresses, the sky that moved like the sea. People said I was full of life, but the truth was different. The more I painted, the more I felt. Something was leaving me. Colors that once meant hope were turning into the last letters to the world. I painted, not for glory, not for admiration, just because I wanted to leave a little light behind. On the 27th of July, 1890, I went into the field that I had painted so many times. The sun was burning and the air was heavy. I took my pistol, not out of anger, but out of fatigue. I wanted the pain to finally stop. Shot. Silence. I lay in the grass among the ears of grass that swayed in the wind. There was no drama, only peace. The wound was not fatal, but I knew I wouldn't fight any longer. I made it back to the inn, where I painted and wrote letters. They put me to bed, and I waited. A few hours later, Theo arrived. My brother, my other half. Theo and I wrote letters to each other. They were the only conversations where I could be myself. I sent him my images, my thoughts, my pain and my hope. And he sent me faith that it was worth it. Maybe it was those letters that made me last so long. Because when you don't believe in yourself anymore, sometimes you just need someone else to believe. He sat next to me and held my hand. He didn't have to say anything. I could understand him even in silence. We talked about childhood, about pictures, about the light that never stops shining. When I felt my breath was getting short, I looked at him and said, "Sadness will last forever." But now I know I was wrong, because even though I left, my colors remained. And in everyone who's ever felt alone, and yet chose to live on, that light still burns. Maybe sometimes you feel just as lost. Maybe you have days when everything hurts and the world around you loses its color. But trust me, this too shall pass. There is no weakness in asking for help. Talk to someone who will listen. Even when it seems impossible, there's always someone who wants to hear you. A friend, family, or someone who understands the darkness. Death is the end, and the end can never be the solution. Because life can change, it can light up again, even if you can't see the light now. Please, stay, even if the world hurts you.